so should we go ahead and get started?
Sure.
My name is Kristen. I'm with the Center for Elder Law and Justice. Thank you everyone for joining and watching this presentation. We're joined today with Angela Marinucci and Amanda Bender with the Department of Senior Services, Michelle Pfeffer from Adult Protective Services, and Sarah Duvall with the Center for Elder Law and Justice. So they will give a brief overview of their agencies and sort of what they can do for you, how they work together, and any information they want to give us.
Thank you, Kristen.
Great, thank you so much, Kristen. Senior Services is really happy to be here and be part of this presentation today as part of World Elder Abuse Awareness Month. Senior Services sees our services primarily as preventing the isolation and the situations that make an older adult ripe for abuse. So we are here to work with our partners in social services and adult protection, as well as the Center for Elder Law and Justice. But we have a lot of preventative program and recreational options for older adults in the county to live those full, vibrant, and dignified lives within their homes as much as possible. So on the slide, you can see that we have our New York Connect phone number, 716-858-8526. It's answered by a live person from 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. And we like to say there is no wrong door when you call Senior Services. Call here and we will feed you into the appropriate options for your personal situation or the situation of a loved one. For example, if there is an elder abuse situation or a fear, we will then give you contact information for CELJ and for adult protection. We'll also make you aware of your options within Senior Services, which include caregiver support, resources for home delivered meals, congregate dining, and our frozen delivered meals as well. Other benefits, including personal care assistance and some light housekeeping, as well as the ongoing virtual and in-person programming we offer at senior centers, including our University Express and other such options. So we have information and assistance, our INA, on a variety of topics to link you to services across the county, and we're here to help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela.
Well, I guess I'll go next. My name is Michelle Pfeffer. I'm from Adult Protective Services. I'm very happy to be here with Senior Services and CELJ, two of our most important partners. Adult Protective Services, our mandate through the state is to ensure that adults age 18 and over can remain safely in the community. We have three principles by which we operate. One is that adults have the right to self-determination, which essentially means that adults typically have the right to make bad decisions if they are so entitled to do. The other one is that the state has an authority to intervene when folks may be having some issues. It's kind of like a parent role that the state can take on. And yet the third principle by which we operate is that we try to do the least restrictive intervention. So in order to be eligible for APS services, you have to be over the age of 18. You have to have a mental or physical impairment. That impairment has to be connected with an unmet essential need or harm of being exploited or abused by someone else, and that there's no one able and willing to assist. So to put that like in an example, if there is someone who is visually impaired to the point where they can't make out what they're signing, they may know how to sign their name, but they might not be able to read what they're signing. And there's someone that's giving them checks to sign, and then that person in turn is taking those checks and stealing their money and not meeting this person's basic needs. That's financial exploitation, and that's appropriate for APS to go in, and we try to educate the person. We'll make referrals to CELJ, the police. We also can help people with preventive issues. So if someone is finding problems with budgeting, maybe their spouse took care of all that and the spouse is no longer with them and they're having some difficulty managing their money and budgeting, we can assist with that with a preventive case. What I'd like to point out are the things that we can't do. We cannot remove people from their homes. We cannot go in and take someone's home over. Those things, I know there are a lot of people out there that think that's what we do, but we don't have the right to do that. There are only 2 entities in Erie County that can compel someone to be hospitalized against their will, and that would be the police or crisis services. And it's very strict on how they can do that. But our goal, as I said, is to keep people in the community because that's where people do the best. And that's about it.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, I'll briefly go over CELJ. If you've been watching our webinar series, you're probably very familiar with this, but we are, my name is Sarah Duval. I'm a supervising attorney in our elder abuse prevention unit. And we provide legal services free of charge to a variety of individuals, mostly age 60 plus. We have a lot of units today in our office, and sometimes the age is younger, but I just want to focus really on our elder abuse prevention unit today because it is World Elder Abuse Awareness Month. So you can call 853-3087 for intake. Our hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but in the summer we have summer hours and it's summer, so it's 9 to 4:30. You can reach our helpline by calling 844-481-0973 to speak with an attorney. An attorney will answer between the hours of 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. or call any other time to leave a message. For us to be able to assist, we need an individual needs 1, mental capacity to accept legal representation, and 2, the desire to retain legal representation for an area in which CELJ would assist. What that basically means is we get a lot of folks calling who are third parties and might say, hey, I think my mom's being abused and I really need you guys to help her. Well, as much as we would, we certainly want to assist, for us to really open a file, we would need that individual's mother, the alleged victim, to both want our help and have the ability to accept our help and form an attorney-client relationship. And so that's why it's, I hear from our partners, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this presentation today is to talk about how, we have this really wonderful partnership with Senior Services and Adult Protective Services. And all 3 of us can overlap. We're actually going to use a case example in which what each of our roles would be. But we all do different things. And I think sometimes folks are unclear about what those things are. There's a lot of myths out there about, what we can and cannot do. I was really glad to hear Michelle say that, APS, can't remove someone from their homes. Unfortunately, we have a lot of clients who have delayed help or, refused intervention because they're very afraid of being removed from their home. And this myth surrounding Adult Protective Services has kept them in an abusive situation longer than they really needed to be. And I can just say that, we utilize Senior Services. We try to, at least for almost every one of our clients. One of the biggest factors in abuse, and what we see for our clients, is isolation. Folks who have been cut off from other friends, family, neighbor, community by either an abuser or by a scammer, and they are really isolated. And that makes them more vulnerable to abuse and to continued abuse. So one of the first things we do when we get a case is try to assess, does this person have supports and linkages? Are they going to senior centers? Are they out in the community? And most often, that's not happening for that individual. And we will often, call over to Senior Services and make sure we try to get someone linked with them as we work through resolving the abuse issues. And I can't say enough good things about how the work of Senior Services and their dedication to keeping people in their homes in the community and keeping them engaged It's really one of the most effective tools to combat abuse when you're trying to have someone break the cycle of abuse. And with adult protection, when we get calls from adult protection saying, hey, this person has a power of attorney that might be acting inappropriately and we're looking into it. Well, we're the lawyers that can go out and meet with that person again if they want our help and have capacity, that we can, actively work with that individual to take the legal steps needed to provide them the assistance they need to break the cycle of abuse. So it really is, I don't know if, Michelle and Angela, we want to take a little time to talk about how referrals work in between partners, because I think it's important. You may have a case where you think it's just one of us, but we may have a role for all three, but they're very distinct and separate roles. And the bad thing I'm going to say about CELJ is that one misconception is that we're the attorneys for adult protective services. Now, although we have a very close relationship, we are a nonprofit organization. We're not a governmental organization. So we're not an adult protective services attorney. We are in fact completely separate from government. So go ahead.
Well, I'll talk about how our referrals work. Unlike child protection, each county is responsible to handle all the referrals that come in, and that's what we call them. We don't call them reports. So what may happen is someone may call in and say, I'm worried about my mom. I think she may need possible aid service. She's not eating well. She might benefit from Meals on Wheels. So our intake team, who handles all of our referrals, and they have up to 3 days to decide on what to do with the referral, they may reach out to mom and say, we received a call of concern. We do not tell anyone we're banned or prohibited from disclosing who called in, but we've received a call of concern about you. Somebody's a little worried about your food supply, how well you may be eating, if you need more nutritious meals, and that maybe you need a little more help around the house than what you're getting. And if the person is in agreement and said, that person's absolutely right, I'm having some difficulty, this person the person's mom may have some mobility issues, and if she can't clean the apartment as well as she may have been able to, that may cause a tripping concern, and it's just not a good situation. That's a situation where we will call over to senior services and say, hey, we've got someone here that looks like they might be eligible for your services. Are you involved? And if we'll talk about whether this person's already getting services. And then we will call the person back and say, here are some numbers for you to call. These are people that can help. These are different things that you can do. We'll make contact with the person's doctor, any other supports to make sure that we have a clear picture of what's going on. But that's the way we typically make referrals to senior services. The way in which we make a referral to CELJ, we had this last week. We had somebody call in, and it was someone over the age of 60, and they were having some landlord issues. And they really needed an attorney to talk to, and we referred them to CELJ and said, if again, we talked to them about all their we do a global assessment on the phone, as limited as that is, but we try to give them information and point them in the right direction as to someone that may assist them. So then we gave them the number to CELJ. That's typically the way we handle referrals to those two partners. With CELJ, we also are included, we're also active with the EMDT, the Enhanced Multidisciplinary Team, in which we will all meet with other providers to talk specifically about financial exploitation cases in which someone has been taken advantage of. And we've had, and Sarah can talk about this far better than I, we've actually had some prosecutions, and the most important thing is that the exploitation has stopped through the intervention.
Great job, Michelle. I think that covered it well for us. So senior services is a voluntary service provider to older adults. So they must be agreeable and wishing to receive those services, but we work with both CellJ and Adult Protection as that cross referral. So Michelle, if we have someone who has called New York Connects and is working with senior services and is looking for home delivered meals or some assistance in their home, they may also be some cause for concern for elder abuse or other awareness, and we would then give them the number for Adult Protection, see if they're in that cross section, or refer them that way. Additionally, we use CellJ both as attorneys for the elder abuse prevention, but if a client needs power of attorney or other type references, we would call the Center for Elder Law and Justice, refer them that way. So for anything that they need in their whole global assessment, as Michelle said. So senior services works with older adults in the ways that they wish to be worked with. It's all voluntary, and it's we call it options counseling, talking through options and what's available to them for services, and then referring them to the proper resources to help their needs.
Thank you. Kristen, before we move on to our case example, I just want to check, do we have any questions or anything from the audience at this point?
I don't see any questions. That said, that's a great plug, Sarah, for if you do have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat or in the question box, and we'll be sure to get to that at the end.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about a case example, and this is, details and names have been changed, but this was a file that, we just want to kind of put as a story to how our agencies actually, do and could work together. So this case example is Irene. She was living in the community. She did not have a power of attorney or healthcare proxy set up. And again, as Angela mentioned in the global assessments, one thing that we try to encourage folks to do is if you have someone in your life that you trust, to try and get those documents set up. Because as we'll see, without those documents, it can be tricky, and that may require or end up with a kind of intervention that you might not want in your life. There were private aids. They were hired by someone who said that they were a relative, and then a referral was made to Adult Protection. There's concern about financial exploitation and insufficient care. Adult Protection saw this and actually made a referral to, as Michelle mentioned, the team that all three of us sit on, along with law enforcement, the DA's office, and financial institutions, to talk about Irene's case and see if there was an intervention that could be helpful to her. I don't know, Michelle, if you have anything else you want to add at this point for the background.
No, I think that was about it. At the beginning of the case, when we were meeting Irene out in the community, she engaged very well. We had some difficulty getting information regarding her doctor, but eventually she did go to her doctor. She denied at the time that there was any financial exploitation going on. And that was at the beginning of the case.
Yes. So, one thing that I do want to point out is Irene was not receiving outside services from senior services at this time. And one of the reasons we think it's so important to have these linkages is because, Irene was fairly isolated. She didn't really have, without the intervention of Adult Protective Services, didn't really have a lot of connections to the outside world, which left her a little bit more vulnerable. So I do want to, point that out. So on that note, what would each agency's role be here? I thought we could just talk a little bit about, the picture is we have an older woman. She was, very advanced age in the community, requiring care. The care is allegedly being provided, but there's some concerns about it. There's not really an outside set of eyes checking in. And what would the role be? I don't know, Angela, if you want to start with what senior services might be able to do in that situation.
So in this particular case, senior services wasn't involved, but we do frequently get involved in cases like this and with that EMDT team. And And what we would do in something like this is if we got a call and she needed some sort of services, whatever it is that we offer, we would have case managers that work with them. And as Michelle mentioned, Irene specifically, but I think indicative of a lot of older adults is some hesitation or stigma associated with being upfront with potential exploitation or elder abuse. And so we really work on building that relationship with our older adults and seeing what they need. And our case management services provide that outside set of eyes where we talk to them. And then if they are able to be out and about in the community, we make them aware of other resources or programming that are specific to their needs, and we'll get them to interact with other people, which prevents that isolation making them more ripe for abuse, and allows us to monitor how they're doing, that older adult is doing. So if they had called, for example, if Irene had called us early on and was getting home delivered meals, that home delivered meal is not an official, but almost a wellness check, day to day, seeing her as that meal goes to her lunchtime meal, and seeing how things are going, and then alerting case management or APS or CELJ if there are some questions or concerns that we may have. So really working to build that trust with the older adults so that they let us know if there are any exploitations or elder abuse, that we can then work with them to get those situations rectified so that they can continue to live those full lives in their homes without that exploitation.
Well, for APS, our role would be we receive the referral, we go out and we make a home visit, we talk to Irene. We gather as much information. Who are the supports? Talking to the people that are supports. In this case, it was aides and a quasi relative, someone that she was close to that she referred to as a relative, and figure out who all the players are, what's everyone supposed to be doing, who has the right to make these decisions on behalf of Irene. Due to the amount of money and the things that weren't being done for Irene to remain safely in the community with her money, which was a substantial amount of money, we also subpoenaed bank records to go through to see, are these Irene's basic needs? Are they being reflected in her bank statements that were someone's paying the rent, paying this, paying that, taxes, and where else is the rest of the money going? And so at that point, we made that referral to EMDT. But we were also checking with other supports. We're checking with doctors. Are there any unmet medical needs? What is her food situation like? What is the house situation like? To get a full picture of Irene's life, and also engaging with her to see how she wanted her life to be. She wanted to remain in the community. She wanted her needs being met at that point. And one of the problems that our workers encounter a lot, a barrier, is that there is stigma attached to someone being taken advantage of. No one really wants to admit that someone is taking their money, that they may have trusted the wrong person. It's a difficult thing for people to admit to. And Irene finally was aware of it to a certain extent, that her money was not going to meet her needs exclusively. She was transported, I believe, to the hospital, and then Sarah, you can take over at that point.
So yes, CELJ was initially unable to assist, as we mentioned before. We did not feel that Irene had the capacity to accept legal representation. We did go out on a visit with adult protection to ascertain that. But APS, sometimes it's something just doesn't seem right, and that's not always enough to keep a case open. But sometimes you keep people in mind, and Irene eventually did end up in the hospital. There was confirmed exploitation, and CELJ was we ended up being appointed her guardian, and her case was prosecuted, and there was a plea on her case for some of the exploitation. So she did end up needing nursing home care, but she was able to without the intervention in the beginning, I don't know that it would have had such a, I don't want to call it a happy ending because people do want to be in the community. So I guess this is a cautionary tale that had she had her funds not been so quickly exhausted, she may have been able to stay in the community and had, you know, they had senior services involvement, keeping an eye on her, maybe saying, you know, I don't know what's going on. The aides are saying they're supposed to be here, but when I drop the meals off, they aren't, or, you know, it would have maybe been a better ending, but it's happy in the fact that she was getting the care she needed and that we were able to achieve, you know, like, you know, work together as a team for a prosecution on this. Yeah, anything else anyone wants to add on that? It's just a brief story. No.
No, and
Okay.
I think, Sarah, you make a good point that maybe it's not the best ending, but it was a safe ending for her. She was not safe in the community. People were taking advantage of her and her money was not being used to support her needs in the community. And it's unfortunate because at one point she had a lot of money and she should have been able to live her life out the way she wanted to with the supports. But unfortunately, people stole from her and she wasn't able to. So at least she was safe.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Safety is the most important thing. And she was no longer isolated.
Right.
You know, she's no longer isolated. And that's important too. Okay, well, I think, you know, that's about it. If we, I know if anyone else, panelists have anything else to add, or if there's any questions, yeah, we just want to give you an overview of how our distinct agencies and what we do, but also how we can work together.
If I could just add one thing, I didn't give our phone number or work hours. I figured I'd do that at the end. APS is not an emergency number, so we do not man our phones 24 hours. If it's an emergency, people should call 911. But our intake office is open from 8:30 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday, as long as we're not off like this coming Monday. And our phone number is 716-858-6711. And if we have 5 intake workers, if they're busy, they will get back to you that day.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other, Chris, any questions or anything else?
So I don't see any questions in the chat. I think that you all did a nice job talking about how, you know, common misconceptions, Michelle, like you said, that APS can't remove someone from their home. I think that we all know that those misconceptions can sometimes be a barrier for an individual seeking help. I was wondering if you could all just confirm another common fear that we hear is maybe someone who's potentially being exploited by a family member or a loved one. They want to start the process of getting help and then, you know, they change their mind. They don't want to involve law enforcement or something like that. And I'm wondering if you could all just confirm for the listeners that how you try to keep the client involved throughout.
Sure, Chris, and that sounds like a question I can answer from Saljay's perspective for sure. And that's, you know, we have, because we're legal services, we form an attorney-client relationship with a client. So if you call us, or, you know, and again, we have to work with the victim as much as we would like to be able to help concerned family members who call, we really can't. We have to work with the alleged victim themselves. So there's a lot of misconceptions. People think that by calling an attorney, or that we're automatically going to, that someone's going to get charged with a crime. That if you're calling an attorney or calling Saljay, that, and especially because so often the abuser is a relative, it's a child or a grandchild, and people don't want to see their you know, relatives end up in jail, and they're very concerned. So I will say that from Saljay's perspective, you know, when you are a client, you are in the driver's seat. We have to listen and serve what you want to do to the extent that it's, you know, legally responsible for us to do so and ethically responsible for us to do so. But we will not, we cannot break confidentiality. If you say, I don't want the police to know about this, we cannot go and make police reports. We cannot even talk to adult protection if you don't want us to. And I think that's an important thing to note as well. Although we have this wonderful partnership, we have a confidentiality rule. So if a client tells us, I do not want you to talk to APS about my case, we won't. You know, we really cannot breach confidentiality when we're working with a client. So that is just an important thing to note, that, you know, it really is a legal relationship, an attorney-client relationship, and there are other ways to address abuse than to just make a police report and move forward. The EMBT certainly can do that, and we can work on that if you want to, but a lot of our clients don't want to see that happen. So we work with our partners if allowed, and we work, you know, with the client to address their needs civilly.
Well, from adult protections standpoint, if we get a call and someone is being exploited by a family member, we will go out, we will help the person. We might ask them if we can order bank statements for them so they know exactly what's going on. If they don't want that, that's their choice. We can assist them with contacting credit card companies to dispute something. We refer them to CellJ. We'll help them open up new accounts. Our caseworkers can do that. They can advise them of the credit reporting reports that they can get. We could advise them, yes, you can make a police report, you can get an order of protection. But again, I don't believe there's any police departments in this area that will take a report from a third party regarding someone, as long as that person has capacity to make those decisions. If someone is suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's to the point where their physician is saying they cannot make an informed decision regarding their own finances and things like that, then we as APS will make the police report to try and protect that person due to their limitations with cognitive impairments.
And I think similar to CellJ and APS as senior services, we are very person focused. So we center on what the client and the older adult wishes to have happen in their situation. So we evaluate their options. We give them all of those things, as Michelle said, you know, referrals to APS and to CellJ, but we are never forcing someone to go down a pathway that they are not wishing to pursue themselves. We work with the older adults to make sure that they are getting all the resources and options that they themselves need and want. So our role is not to, you know, back them into any corner or make them feel forced. We want people to call us and to reach out to us so that we can be here to help and provide these resources to them. And that never includes going against their wishes and pursuing something for them that they do not want.
Well, thank you, all of you, for clarifying that. I just think that's an important point to bring up. Other than that, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So with that said, I think we're probably safe to end the webinar. Again, anyone listening, watching, please feel free to reach out to any of our agencies with questions. We are happy to assist. We're all here to help you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.